She lost to Trump. We tried Kamala in 2024. She lost to Trump. Let's pump the brakes a little bit here. Right? I really think that that's going to be their takeaway. I really think, and Democratic voters, and that's the more important point, I think Democratic voters are going to hesitate to have another woman as their nominee. And again, I think it's unfair because you get the right woman, it can work. But I think a lot of people have made this point that when we do get our first female president, it will likely come as a conservative Republican woman. I think that's most likely. So, but in terms of the policies, I don't know. I don't know if she has the ability at the national level to break through. It's possible, but at this point, I think it's probably unlikely. Here, let's watch this.
We are about to enter a political period that will have consequences for the rest of our lives. We cannot give up. We now find ourselves in a time in history that has precedent, and we find ourselves, I believe, in a time where there are, let's say, peers in history of mass movements of people that mobilize to protect one another in times of fascism and authoritarianism. And this is the era that we are poised to enter. Donald Trump has talked about turning the military on U.S. citizens that he deems his domestic political enemies. Authoritarians and people that he affiliates closely with and strongmen abroad, in regimes like that, it is not uncommon to jail political dissidents or legislative opponents. This is the world that we very realistically may be entering.
Look, it would be very interesting to me to see how far she gets if she embodies the magic formula, right? You guys have heard me talk about it, but controversial, charismatic celebrity, I think that helps massively, way more than people realize. And then you also have to represent not only the populist left-wing economic policies and frame them as centrist, but you also have to have the narrative, right? You also have to be able to do what Trump did. Trump was able to say, the problem with the country is immigrants. The problem with the country is cultural elites. Be pissed at them. I'm your savior. They're the enemy. Let's go get this thing. Can AOC take that and apply it with a left-wing philosophy of the problem is the billionaires. The problem is the donor class. And we're going to fight them, take away their power, and represent you. We're going to give you higher minimum wage. We're going to get you universal health care. We're going to do universal basic income. We're going to, whatever, fill in the blank. We're going to end the corruption, all that stuff. I would be interested to see how far she can get using that. I do think, as I pointed out, I think the biggest strikes against her are sort of the optics stuff that it's going to be hard for Democrats to overcome in the near future, right? In other words, being a woman, being really young, I do think that voters will probably hold that against her. And I don't know if it's not as big of a liability as, say, Joe Biden being 400 years old, but the young angle does sort of matter too, right? I think in the eyes of many voters, they wouldn't want to go hard swing in the other direction where super young in your 30s, right? And that would apply to me too, or anybody in their 30s who would try to run for office. So, yeah, I don't know. I'm curious what you guys think about it. The field is wide the fuck open right now, though. The field is wide open, and we already have some sense of who's actually going to run. We already know Gavin Newsom is going to do it. We already know Pete Buttigieg is likely going to do it. We already know Gretchen Whitmer is going to do it. J.B. Pritzker is going to do it. And AOC, I guess, is considering it. Although, to be fair, this whole segment might be for naught because this came from a Republican. The Republican was like, oh, she's the one that we were worried about the most, right? I don't know if she's even fucking commented on it. I don't know. But I would say before she were to try something like that, I really do think Senate is a better path for her. Because if she can win a Senate seat in New York, I feel like then that would be a better indication that perhaps she would have broad enough national appeal. But right now, as you all know, my number one, who I know it's wishful thinking, but my number one is Jon Stewart, and I really, really want him to get in because he's got all the tools, and he's somebody I'm actually very confident would be a force to be reckoned with, whereas many of the others have upsides and downsides. And to be fair to AOC, more of her downsides are things that are totally out of her control. You know, I think it's unfair if voters hold against her age and her gender, but I think they probably will hold that against her. So it's sort of unfair because then when you look at somebody like, Gavin Newsom or Pete Buttigieg, they're way more corporate, and I don't like that, and that's something they can change, but they won't, right? And then the tools they have they're good at debating. And so, I don't know, curious what you guys think. Put it in the comment section below. Is this a real thing? Like, is she actually going to run? And then what do you think the chances are of her succeeding? I will say this in conclusion. Crazier things have happened. Like Donald Trump winning twice, and one of the times he won, having fucking 91 criminal charges against him and trying to overthrow the previous election. I'm sufficiently humbled to the point where I don't fucking know. I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. I'm at the point where it's hard for me to make predictions. I need to be very, very certain now to sort of make a prediction and show plenty of agnosticism where warranted. Plenty of shoulder shrug, it is what it is. I can't tell you, right? But you got to embrace that a hell of a lot more. So, but I'm curious what your guys' thoughts on it are. Hey, y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop, and watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.